ladies, welcome to today's show. I have a special treat for you because today you get to meet my big sis, Alicia, and I know you're just gonna fall in love with her, and I wanted to have her on the show, first of all, just because she's my big sis and she needs to be on the show, but secondly, because she has an amazing story with her and her husband, Jim, and I've just gotten to take like a back seat and just like watch everything that's gone on with them meeting to getting married to now expecting their first child. And I've just really admired the godly example that they've been. And really it's a godly foundation because it started with God in the center. And I wanted Alicia to share her and Jim's story of just how they met and how they worked through growing together and the callings that God has given them. And now how they're the great partners together to be able to pursue God together and not hold each other back and just keep pushing forward in the things of God. So I know you're going to be encouraged, and it's going to show us some things practically that we can know how to pick the right person, or know at least the steps to meeting the guy that God has for us, so that we're not just filling a need to fill a need, but really picking for purpose and picking for the kingdom things. So I am excited for you to jump into this conversation with us today. Hey ladies, welcome back to The Beauty of Becoming, the podcast for women pursuing Jesus, their purpose, and healthy relationships. So if you're watching on my YouTube channel, then you notice the set looks a little different.
Yeah.
And I am joined by my beautiful sister, Alicia McDermott-Yanik.
Hey.
So glad that you all get to meet her on this episode. And we are in our Coming Up Higher studio, which is our podcast that we co-host together. So if you're looking for some more great content that's spirit-filled and just positive, and you want to come up higher in your everyday perspectives with God, then go ahead and like and subscribe to our podcast, because I know you'll be encouraged. But man, I'm so excited because I feel like a couple of my worlds are colliding right now, because as a single woman, like, this is a venture that I've kind of stepped out and followed God's voice and leading. But also, some of you do know, some of you may not know, I have a music ministry with my sister. We're both singers and songwriters. So we have written 3 albums worth and some of music, but we're working on our 3rd album right now. And we get to lead worship and speak and things at like churches and conferences, women's conferences. And like we said, we have our podcast. We've both written books. So really that's been what we've been doing for the last 7 or 8 years. And then our missions work and stuff like that. And so wouldn't be in the ministry had we not done this together.
Right. Yeah.
So excited to have you on today.
Thanks for having me on. I love it. I've checked out the episodes already. Even I'm not a single lady, but I support you and all you do. And the content's great for no matter where you are in life, what stage you're in life. And so I'm honored to be on The Beauty of Becoming.
Yeah. And I'm sure this will only be the first time. I have a feeling you'll be back. But what's really neat is just about our relationship. Like, a lot of times people have called us fire and ice.
Yeah.
Because we are so different, like, in a lot of ways, just like personality and how we see things and our perspectives, which is like actually a really good thing. It's what you might think, oh, you should be like-minded, or, be the same to like be in ministry together or business, but like that's actually the opposite is true. Like, where you're strong, maybe I'm a little weaker, but maybe where you're a little weaker, I'm stronger.
Right.
And so we've really been able to have this really neat balance together.
Yeah. And really when the vision's the same and the goal and the heart behind it's the same, the Lord's able to use that and bring oil and water in a lot of ways and use that together to just like make something new and just fulfill his purpose. And so that's what's been the beautiful thing about our relationship. What he started in our mother's womb, at 2 years apart, but
everyone thinks we're twins, but we're not.
And so just what he set into motion, he knew the end from the beginning from the end. And so it's been an adventure.
Yeah.
Awesome ride so far. Much more to go.
Yep. Wouldn't trade it for anything, for sure. So when I was thinking of like different topics and things to share with the ladies on this podcast, your story, yours and your husband Jim's story came to mind because as little sis, I've gotten to see the whole thing unfold to this point. And just so you know, ladies, they are expecting their first baby, Yay! My little niece. So I'm super excited about that. Our brother has 3 sons and we're going to get a little niece. So super excited about that. On top of our stepsister, she has a son and daughters, and niece and nephew. So love how God's expanding our family and growing it with powerful little people.
Yeah.
But it's what's really funny too. And like, I love God's humor is that Alicia and I, how God has moved in our lives is the opposite. Like we both wanted opposite things and God gave us like opposite answers.
Right.
So, and I want you to talk a little about that. I know I've shared on this podcast that I was the type that I like wanted to meet my husband in high school and like get married right away and just like do that whole thing. But that was not the case with Alicia.
Yeah. I always, and even just having a mom as a business owner, we come from a divorced family. And it was something she instilled in us that it was just like, get your job right, get your education, get a career, live on your own for a while before you settle down and, and all these things. And that I've just always been an independent in a lot of ways, like free spirit, like, yeah, I want to travel. I knew I wanted to travel overseas and just do all these things. And I thought maybe after college I'll meet somebody. And, after I've been on my own for a while, and when you said, man, I would have got married at 18. I'm like, really? Like what? Like that was not on my radar at all. But little did I know I would meet my future husband in high school. It was totally not on my radar, but it's exactly what I needed. We didn't get married till we were 22 because college and long distance for a while, and that's a testimony in itself. But yeah, it's funny how when you follow God, you have to lay down some of those preconceived notions of my plan for my life, of your plan for your life. This is how it's going to work. Because if you've lived any amount of time, you realize it rarely happens that way.
Yeah. Well, that's because like God knows what you need.
Right.
So we think we know what we need and that's what we base our desires on. But God's like, no, boo, I know what you really need. And for you, like finding that person and getting married, like that's what you needed.
Right.
Because of just, like you said, you were just the free spirit wanting to do this or that, or maybe you were like even contemplating moving and doing like full-time mission work, which is a great thing, but that's like not what God had for you. Right. So he's like, I gotta ground this girl.
I need to give her like a pillar kind of man.
Whereas me, I'm like, I want to stay here and be exactly like I am. And God's like, all right, go to Honduras, go to Tanzania. Like, I'm going to increase your tent pegs here. What came so naturally to Alicia, like he really had to stretch me to do.
Yeah. So basically, just kind of diving into that, being in high school was, Jim, him and I've known him since like we were in 8th grade together. We didn't communicate much, but like freshman year we had driver's ed together, and he's this shy academic type, like not really the type that I normally went for. Like he was cute and everything. And I liked that he was kind of quiet. 'Cause like me being more of an outgoing person, you kind of like,
they're the best ones to pick on.
Yeah, I know.
Or like joke with.
I know introverts hate that, but like he was the type that liked it. I would make him laugh, and I liked that he laughed at my jokes, and he still does and puts up with me and stuff. But it was just kind of like this slow growing thing because he wasn't looking for a wife in high school either, and so I kind of had to like make myself available, more. It's like, well, I'll go by his locker and talk with him, or I'll borrow a book from him, or, all these things. And like
even send your best friend on recon.
Yeah. And when senior year came around, he was on the football team and he was getting buff and, on the physical side, ladies, like, come on, like we know how that goes. Yes. I'm like, okay, Jim, like I see you. See those gains, and
he's gonna be so embarrassed.
I know.
Sorry, Jim, we love you.
He is, but at the same time, so he I sent my friend Christina, and I was like, just ask him, if he's going to homecoming with anybody senior year. We both were on homecoming court, and so Christina, she kind of gave him the little nudge that like, well, I'll just tell you this. If you ask Alicia, I know she'll say yes. And so he met me in the hallway with a rose and asked me to homecoming. And that was like our first date. And from then on, we were both 18 senior year, and really like it just began. God started it there. Mm-hmm. And it was, a journey from then on, because I was planning on moving to Missouri for college. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh gosh, like I really like this guy. Like, we have a lot of the same values and things, but like, it's not what I pictured life would be. It's like, I still want to move. Are we going to be long distance, or, like, how's that going to work and things. And so there was like some navigating that had to happen there. And so I ended up staying in Rockford because I didn't get into the school that I wanted right away in Missouri. I stayed in Rockford for a couple of years, and we went to community college together. But the Lord during that time called me on a mission trip. And that was really like a pivotal change milestone in my life.
Yeah. And that's what I want to dive deep into today, because that's something that God has reiterated to me in my life, like over and over again, is Whitney, you're going to have to find someone who can be in the calling with you. And that doesn't mean they have to have the same job or they have to be a singer and worship leader or whatever. Like if they are, cool. But just someone that, first of all, spiritually is at the same place or like heading in the same direction as you are. That's a must. But then also like that's not the only prerequisite. Like they have to be willing to walk with you in your calling, because with especially like our calling has been unique because it's involved missions and it's involved like traveling and doing things that not every guy is okay with his wife being gone.
Right.
And so God had to really give you a specific person, and really it's cool. God built it into the process. And I'm sure you'll talk about that too, of just even the long distance thing, how that's prepared you guys for your marriage. But ladies, we have to we can't just find a Christian guy. Like that's okay. First check mark, right. But then he has to be willing to walk in our callings with us. And whether that's you being a teacher or a doctor or a stay at home mom, like whatever it is you're desiring, or maybe you do want to be on the mission field full time or part time, it's the relationship that you have is so important with your future spouse, because that can either prohibit you in a lot of ways or that can set you free in a lot of ways. And that's what I love about your guys' relationship that I've gotten to see, Alicia, is just that you haven't stopped each other from doing what God's called you to do. You've actually advanced each other in that, but that you had to find that out. Yeah. And it wasn't easy. And so I want you to talk through what that process looked like for you and Jim.
Yeah. So, I was 20 when I went on my first missions trip to Honduras, and I helped at an orphanage. It was a short-term trip, but I came back changed. Yeah. I knew that, I had kind of just like a life plan, go to school, get a job, work the 9 to 5, just kind of like, just a normal life is what I had envisioned, and, go to church on Sundays, but just like, I didn't fully know the calling that God had on my life at that time because I'm 20, Right. And not many of us do, but something was awakened in me. And I came back to Jim, came back to Illinois different. Yeah. And we had to have a talk because I knew he was kind of on the plan of same thing, go to school, like get 9 to 5 jobs, like kind of thing. Like that was the plan, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Which it's great. Yeah. If you're both like, that's the plan, then that's great.
Yeah, that's totally fine. But I'm like, I didn't know at that point if the Lord, I could see myself living in Honduras full time at that time. Like there was just so many, I went back every 6 months for, a few years. But I had to come back and have a conversation with Jim and say, this is what I feel like God is calling me to. And it could include living in another country. It could include adopting kids. I don't know. Like, I'm still figuring it out.
Right.
But I know there's something within me that's calling out, that's crying out for more than what I had envisioned my life to be.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself having a life like that? Not having, you know, a set plan, but like trusting God, and like, do you see yourself? And at that time, I didn't see him in that place, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And there's, like I said, there was nothing wrong with him. He's a beautiful person. And he,
he's the best.
He really is. Like, I wish everybody could be loved like he loves me, you know?
Beautiful.
And so like, but I was willing to like lay that aside. And if he wasn't willing to like go on a journey with the Lord with me. And, so we took a break. We broke up, but like, cause he wasn't sure, you know, of his life plans and what, you know, it was kind of a shock. Like, you go on this trip and you come back like, whoa, like,
and she was changed. Like, I even remember, like, I was like, oh my gosh, this girl's on fire and like different.
And it changed me. I've never been the same since. And so we took a break, and I didn't know if it was forever or like what, but we were miserable. It was 2 weeks, like, or maybe even less than 2 weeks. And I was just miserable the whole time. And it was just like, this doesn't feel right either. You know, like, I'm willing to let him go if, Lord, that's what you want. But like, this just doesn't feel right either, you know? And so we ended up having a conversation, and we were just basically came to the point, and it was like, we'll walk this out together, whatever it looks like.
Yeah.
And, ended up moving to Missouri for 2 years. We were long distance, and we ended up seeing each other about every month or every couple months. But during that time, the Lord built such a foundation of communication and being willing to be separated but connected at the heart in a lot of ways, because we both were working on goals. He was going to engineering school, and I was in school and living where I felt like the Lord wanted me to live and position myself. And that was another leg of the journey, you know?
Well, and I want you to add too, so after you had that conversation, then Jim decided he would take a mission trip.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And that really showed, because he just said, I think I need to go see what has captured your heart, what, you know, what it's all about, and see if I could fit into it too. And I thought that just spoke volumes and showed me so much of his character. Because I don't think like people realize, like, the high school sweetheart thing, like, oh, it's so sweet, you know, and we know grandparents did it. But when you say yes to someone at 18, I mean, even just dating, but like when you get into a relationship with someone at 18 and then like grow with them, like you're saying yes at a very young age. You don't know what they're going to look like as an adult. Like, your brain's not even fully developed. Right. You know what I mean? Like, and same with them. They don't know what you're going to be. And so you're saying yes and trusting God and trusting this person with, I believe in who God is in you and who you're going to be. And I believe that together with Christ in the center, we can support each other as we grow up, as we literally grow up into adults, but also as we grow into our callings, as we grow into our ministries or our family and our house and incorporating each other's families. Like, I trust who God is in you, and that we can navigate life together. And, you know, little did I know that, you know, I wouldn't be doing missions work, but I would be in a way. But like, the Lord had music ministry and, you know, podcasts and just all these different things that, books that like, it looks different, but they're still traveling. There's still distance and Jim has been just like a constant pillar through it all. Yeah. And so that's what I want to encourage ladies listening, is that people may not always check off every box, or you may be young and it's just, or you may be old and they're like, well, they've developed a lot of habits, you know, because they're older and lived on their own a long time. You know, I've heard that too. But like, when God is in it and when he's leading you, and you feel that draw and you feel like there are so many commonalities and you can see it, trust God, and as you keep him in the center, he's going to fill in the gaps where your guys' personalities may not, be exactly the same, or like even me and you, Whit, like we're different in a lot of ways, but like that's what makes it better. And we don't try to change each other, but Christ in us changes us, because when our hearts are turned towards him, that's where the change happens, and you're really going after the same goal and the same vision.
Yeah, that's good. That's what I think is really the key, is finding someone that's willing to just even do that with you, to discover like, what is it that we're called to do? Or if you really feel like, that you're willing to grow together and to have those conversations together so that you can change and shift and grow as you need to. And so that's what I love, that Jim was even just willing to be like, okay, let me go on a mission trip and see what it's all about, because he had never done anything like that. And that was actually my first trip too, when Jim went. And so I got to experience that, and my whole world changed because of you coming back and asking us to go with you on the next one. But yeah, I want to encourage you ladies, just really, when you're choosing someone, don't just choose someone, like Alicia said, just to check off boxes, but really think about, okay, I'm a growing and changing woman, and as God, like, I can tell you ladies, honestly, I'm a different person than I was last year. And I would even say at 3 months ago, or, my goal is to be different every week, because I'm pursuing God deeper, and he's showing me new things, and I'm going to new places. So we really want to have a spouse that's willing to do that with us, and to grow with us, and to pursue God to that extent with us. And that's just what I so appreciate about their relationship. And Jim, like I said before, you don't have to have the same exact job or the same exact giftings or whatever, because Jim's an engineer and doesn't sing at all, sing at all. So Alicia could have looked at that and been like, wow, I need somebody who can help me lead worship, or I need somebody that has these giftings or that. But actually Jim's giftings have brought exactly what we didn't have.
Exactly. Foundational, like, organizational things, just like numbers, bookkeeping, like different things that he's just set in place that, and I'm not even using all the correct terms and words, but just like we call him our manager, because he really manages us, like keeps us in alignment and order, like it's just, he fills in those cracks. And another thing too, like my calling is to support him as well, and we've just talked about the one side of it, but like I just pray over him, at night, and just like, Lord, give him favor in his workplace. While he's sleeping, I'll pray over him, and just like, Lord, I just pray for new doors, promotion, and just all these things that, like, Lord, give him the desires of his heart, give him witty inventions, like, and just to call upon the giftings that the Lord has placed on him, and just for him to exceed and excel in life as well. Yeah. Because so many times, especially as women, the goal is just to find a man, like, I want a relationship. I want to be taken care of. I want that companionship. But I think we need to switch our mindset, and it's to find your purpose, and then find the helpmate that can help you in that purpose.
That's so good.
And so, but oftentimes we find the man and then try to squeeze in our purpose here and there, and it ends up being backwards. But in the foundation of when we know who we are in Christ, and we know what we were called to do. I didn't know every road, detour, ups and downs, what it looked like at 19, 20, but I knew I was being called to something, and I knew I couldn't say no, because I knew it was kind of like, you could do this, and God will still love you, and you could still have this life, and, and go this way. But if you take this path, you're really in for an adventure. And you could truly know what it feels like to live out your calling and do what I've called you to do. And I knew that fire inside me, that I had to choose him. I had to choose God. Yeah. And I had to choose the calling and purpose, and that I knew and I trusted that he was going to send whoever it was. If it was Jim, that Jim would be that person, but that I needed to have somebody that was aligned in that purpose, to go along with me.
That's
in
so
that.
good. Yeah, just getting those priorities straight, that it's not about like finding a man and then working everything else out, but it's literally seeking after God, who he's called me to be, what he's asking me to do. And then, like you said, finding that helpmate to come where you can come alongside each other.
Right.
And that's another point I'm really glad that you brought up, because I've witnessed where you have also been that encouragement for him and helped him, in his walk and his calling, even to the point of getting a new job.
Yeah.
When there's a story where, he was kind of discontent at work and just they were both feeling like he was going to be transitioning out of this job. And then all of a sudden, Alicia one night is just like, hey, why don't you look up this company and see if they're hiring? And sure enough, they were hiring. Jim sends an application that night, gets a call the next morning, gets hired, and finds out months later that the former job he had just left had laid off how
like
much?
a third of their company, and he would have probably been in that number
because of the seniority. So yeah, just seeing things like that, it's definitely been a mutual benefit and a mutual get, like you've both been able to help each other walk out your callings. And that, I believe, is what it's not. A relationship isn't just to like fill that need of just like, I need a person, I need someone just to, come home to, or like to make me feel like I'm important or what. Think beyond just right now. Think beyond that instant gratification of like, oh, someone to text and call and send me flowers and go on dates with. Like, yeah, those are all wonderful things. But 10, 15, 20 years down the road, like, what are the things that are going to be important? Who do you want to be the father of your children?
Right.
Kind of, if you want children, thinking like more along those lines, like, I feel like God's calling me to do this. Are you willing to help me in this pursuit?
Yeah. But if you don't know what your calling is, now being single, whether you're never been married or you're widowed or you're divorced, now is a great time to reestablish that foundation and just spend time with God and just be like, what does my next 5-10 years look like in you, God? What are you calling me to do? And because when you have, scripture says, write the vision, make it plain, and all those who will see will run with it. When you know where you're going and your vision's plain, someone can come and run alongside you and help, and they'll run with it as well. And I think that's really important, because having been married, now I can really realize that if you have the right person running with you, it can catapult you into something. One can put 1,000 to flight, two can put 10,000 to flight. And I see that. But if it's not the right person and they're not in the same alignment with you, it can be like a stone. When you're trying to swim, it can be like a cannonball attached to your leg, where it's just like this constant, I'm reaching towards what I feel like I'm supposed to do in my career in God and my ministry or whatever, but I'm constantly getting a guilt trip because they don't want me to do it, or they don't want me to travel, or they don't want me to, and
they don't go to church with
they don't
me,
go to church. They don't have the same vision. They don't, they don't want to raise kids the same way I do. Like, establishing these things is so important, because a partner can be a great benefit, but they can also be a great detriment to what God wants you to do. And so it's so important to choose somebody that is seeking after God with you, and you're not just filling a spot or a hole in your life. You're finding a traveling companion that is really going to contribute to all aspects of your life. It's important to just not pick out of loneliness, but pick out of that vision, and having that clarity of vision of where your life is going, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's so good.
And I'll tag on real quick too. The grace of God is sufficient for you. And so for those of you who feel like, oh, my picker's off, like I pick the wrong ones all the time. And like, my 18-year-old self didn't know what the heck she was doing. You know what I mean? But the grace of God was sufficient in my life. And I just knew just enough that if I could follow his voice, if I could just lean into him, that I would end up on the right path. And so don't I know it was a kind of a weighty subject we were talking about pick the right person, but like trust God in the process. Like even in our naivety and our, even if you're young or if you're divorced and you're like, man, I made a wrong choice before or whatever, like trust God and lean into him and hear his voice for your life. Because his grace is sufficient for you in all aspects. And so I really give all credit to God, not like how wise I was at 18, because I wasn't. I made a lot of mistakes, but I'm so glad he covered me, and he's going to cover you too.
That's good. Yeah, it's so good. And I know we've talked on this show before about just how when people just say like, it's going to take a special person, just wait. And sometimes that's like the most frustrating thing you can hear. But at the same time, like it's one of the most true things that we could hear, that it is going to take a special man of God to walk alongside us and to do this life with us as we say yes to Jesus and continue to pursue him. And so just from one single woman to another, I just want to encourage you, like, just keep going, and don't, like Alicia said, don't allow loneliness to cause you to choose someone that's just going to be a detriment later on, or that's going to hold you back. I know loneliness is hard in singleness, but I can only imagine that loneliness is even harder when you're married.
That's so true. Yeah.
Like I'd rather, at least when I'm single and I'm lonely, it's because I'm just by myself. But to be lonely, like with another person when you thought you had found someone to do life with, like that has to be way more lonely and frustrating. And to just even seeing, we all have those people in our lives that we've watched pick a mate out of loneliness and out of just to fill that need to have that family or whatever, and seeing the results that are sometimes devastating. And so even though it's hard for us right now, I think if we just keep moving forward, keep pressing on, God's going to be faithful and give us, first of all, the friends that we need, the loved ones. Then I think eventually too, we will find that person, that Jim in our lives that will just be able to complement what we're doing. We'll be able to complement what he's doing, and we'll be really a power force in the kingdom together.
So true. And I just want to say, as we wrap up, but just place enough value on who you are, and who God's called you to be, to not settle for anything less than that person that can run alongside you and encourage you on your run. And like Whitney said, vice versa. Place enough value on yourself. You know, other guys that I dated in my teens and stuff, when I was just lonely or just, I realize now I didn't know who I was enough, that I settled for things and settled for actions and that weren't who I really was in Christ. Yeah. And so know who you are in him. And like I said, put yourself on that pedestal and say, and have standards and have values, know who you are in him. And that makes the process, it kind of weeds out prospects.
Oh yeah, it definitely does.
But I don't know about you, but I would, when you place yourself on that standard, then, you know, the cream of the crop rises to the top, you know, the creme de la creme.
Exactly.
And then, you know, you're with somebody that can take the journey with you.
Yeah, somebody that can hang.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, that's right. And be willing for the surprises of God.
Yeah.
The men that you may not have thought, you may not have picked out in your younger years, but now that our brains are developed.
Right, exactly.
And we walked through some things, it's like, hey, you don't look too bad.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So, well, thank you, sis, for coming on and joining. I know I've been blessed. I know the ladies have been blessed. And I hope you'll come on again sometime and share some more of your wisdom.
Yeah, I for sure will. And I just want to thank my husband, Jim, for I know he'll listen to this, and just thank you for being the man of God that you are. And I'm just blessed, and I'm glad we got to share our story. And thank you for being an example of what Christ, like a husband, loves his wife like Christ loves the church. And I'm so blessed to have you. And so, ladies, I pray that over you in the same way that God will bring your person that you guys can just run the race together. So it's been a blessing.
That's good. We're tearing up over here. Hashtag marriage goals, ladies. So awesome. Well, thank you, ladies, for tuning in today. And I am so excited for what God has in store for us on the next episode. I'll see you then. Thanks for listening to the Beauty of Becoming podcast. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, let me know by leaving a positive rating and a comment of how God used today's episode to speak to you. And don't forget to subscribe to this show wherever you listen so you're notified whenever a new episode is posted.